Good morning and welcome to Renew, the show all about the College of Forest Resources. The College of Forest Resources works to conserve, manage, and sustain our natural resources both in Mississippi and throughout the globe. And today we are honored to have our guest, Dr. Ashley Schultz, an assistant professor in forestry, and Mamilla. Taiwo?
Yeah.
Did I say that right? A graduate student in forestry. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
for having us.
Well, we're excited to hear all about what you're doing. So, Dr. Schultz, you're a relative newcomer to Mississippi State. So can you tell us a little bit about what your path was to get here?
Yeah, so I've kind of always been interested in the outdoors and working out in nature, and so I started by getting my bachelor's in forestry from the University of Missouri, Mizzou, another SEC school, and then I went and got my master's in forestry from UGA Warnell School of Forestry, and then I got a PhD in environmental science from Arkansas State University, and then postdoced at Colorado State for about a year and a half, and then I came here. So
you have a wealth of experience from a lot of different geographic places.
A little bit, yeah. Primarily southeast, but yeah, a little all over the place.
So where are you originally from?
I'm originally from a small town called Silex, Missouri.
Okay.
Yeah, very, very small town. And I lived in Missouri for most of my life. My family's still there.
Okay, great. And Damilillo, I love your name. I love saying it. Tell me, told me earlier you were from Nigeria. So tell me about your path to get to Mississippi State.
I had my bachelor's degree in environmental biology, and I also have a master's in environmental biology. But I've always loved forestry, even while I was studying environmental biology. And along the line, I worked with Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria, and I was able to work on forest regeneration, floristic structure, forest and dynamics. And I told myself, why not just get a graduate's degree in forestry? So I applied to Mississippi State University. I contacted Dr. Ashley Schultz, and that was how I found myself here.
Yeah, and the rest is history, I guess.
Yes.
Well, welcome to Mississippi. We're glad you're here. How long have you been here in the state?
I came into Mississippi State in January 2022.
Okay, so this is your first summer.
Yes,
And
exactly.
it's a hot one, isn't it?
It's really, really warm.
Yes, it is. So Ashley, you work in non-native insects. Is that right?
Yes, I work in forest entomology and forest health more broadly. I work a lot with introduced forest insects that have a lot of big impacts on our native plant species. So they're some of them are pretty catastrophic, some of them are fairly benign, but they're really fun to study.
I bet. Interesting. So is there a particular insect, when we think about forestry in Mississippi, we know the southern pine beetle is one that's, I guess that's a native.
It is native, yes.
So we know that's destructive, and then there's the emerald ash borer, I think, that is non-native. Is that right?
It is non-native. It is not in Mississippi yet that we know of.
Yeah,
So,
mainly in the mountain or in Tennessee and.
Emerald ash borer has been predominantly up in Michigan, northeastern U.S., but it is slowly migrating this way south. It is migrating west, as far west as Colorado now, maybe even further west than that now. But they just found it in South Carolina a few years ago. So it's slowly making its way here. We're basically surrounded, I think. In Tennessee, it's in Arkansas. I don't know that it's in Alabama yet, but it's definitely in Georgia. So it's slowly working its way down.
Yeah, and that's a killer of the ash tree, which is often used in urban landscapes. But I guess maybe
in some cases, we do have native ash out in the forest too. They're not as big as ash trees up in Michigan and Ohio, Pennsylvania, but they are still a very important component of our forest ecosystems, and so having emerald ash borer come in could be really devastating for some of our forest ecosystems.
So when we think about non-native threats to our Mississippi forest landowners, what do you see Do you have a crystal ball where you forecast this may be coming, or?
That's something we're trying to figure out now. So part of my research right now is we're developing this iTree pest predictor tool that will be launched in July of next month, by the end of next month, through iTree, the iTree website. And so that tool, what we're hoping is that we can enter information for insects that are not yet here in North America and figure out their predicted probability of high impact on North American trees, conifers and hardwoods, which is going to be great for us in terms of like predicting whether or not something will be bad, and then we can go and create the sort of infrastructure to prevent it from getting here in the first place.
Right.
Which, yeah, it'll be really cool.
That would
So
be.
we're excited about that. Right now we're in the process of testing some insects from Europe to see whether or not they will be high impact or not. We don't have those data yet, but we're getting that soon. But as far as like crystal balls go, everything seems to be impacted by something. Even if it's not here yet, even if the insect is not here yet, there are some studies that are being conducted in Asia and Europe and around the world, these sentinel tree studies that are looking for the next catastrophic invaders. And in fact, they're finding a lot of different things, even things like sweet gum. Like we kind of harp on sweet gum. They're like, oh, it's a native species, but we don't really like it. But even sweet gum has a potentially problematic pest associated with it that if it comes here, it could devastate sweet gum. So,
Which might not be so bad.
Yeah, this is sweet gum
If you-
inscriber.
yeah.
Yeah, so that one, there's a lot of different species that we're keeping an eye on, but by and large, we're trying to control the ones that are already here, so and prevent them from coming down even further. So things like spongy moth, things like Asian longhorn beetle. Asian longhorn beetle just jumped from Ohio to South Carolina. They just found a population in South Carolina.
Pretty big jump.
Big jump, yeah. And so that one really affects Acer maple species. So having an idea of where things are moving, how they're getting around, trying to prevent that from happening, keep them contained is really what we try to do because everything is impacted by something. All of our oaks, our maples, our pines, like everything in the forest is impacted by something that's out there. And it's just a matter of time before something else gets here.
That's right.
So we're trying to stay vigilant.
Yeah.
Make sure nothing is kind of hiding under our noses and
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, the Mamilla, I know you're kind of new in your research, but have you started a research program, or do you know what direction you're going to go with your research?
I am planning to work on pine decline. Pine decline has been an age-long issue in the pine forest in the United States, and in previous times it has been controlled through silviculture management practices such as prescribed burning and thinning. And in recent times, there are reports of pine decline in specific locations. So I'll be working on a forested land that has been reported to be experiencing pine decline. We don't know what is causing the decline, so we want to see if this decline is caused by environmental stressors or if it is caused by bark beetles, part of which southern pine beetle belongs, or it could even be root-feeding beetles or climate change, or even some other abiotic variables. So we want to know what is causing pine decline in that particular forested land. It is in Mississippi here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said we don't know what causes it. There could be a host of things. It could be insects. It could be some kind of fungi, I guess, or maybe it could be climate.
The pine. So pine die. We're going to be going out to some field sites that have pine dieback, and we're not sure if pine. So there's a actual disease complex or kind of complex called pine decline that is a mixture of different factors, so abiotic and biotic factors that contribute to this overall pine decline. And they're not really sure what directly causes that, but our goal is to go out and assess pine dieback and make sure that, okay, is there any sort of, like she mentioned, bark beetle or fungal pathogens associated with this dieback? what's going on. Southern pine beetle is actually in an eruptive state right now, and it's an eruptive part of its cycle in Mississippi. So there are a lot of outbreaks right now in this state. Other parts of the southeast aren't really experiencing southern pine beetle outbreaks. So we're going to see, okay, is southern pine beetle associated with this? Did it come from one of these other outbreak areas? Or maybe it's an Ips beetle, we're not quite sure, but we're gonna go out and investigate. It's kind of like a fun mystery.
You know, like forensic science going on in the forest.
We're tree doctors going out and figuring out what's causing the dieback.
So with pine, so help me understand a little bit, because my understanding is that beetles would move into stressed trees.
A lot of them do,
and
yes.
and if they're in decline because of some stress, maybe it's not an insect stress. How do you pull back the layer, so to speak, so you know, okay, it's not from the beetles, it's something else?
Well, we know we can often go in and capture beetles, and we know about the life histories of a lot of beetles, and we know, okay, if we find this particular species, we know that this one is just going to be colonizing dead and dying wood. So we know, okay, this beetle species obviously didn't kill this tree. It's just kind of coming in as a secondary thing on this tree that's already stressed and dying. Whereas some other species, we know, okay, they do colonize trees that are stressed, but maybe not on their way out yet, and kind of push them over the edge. So we know about life histories of certain beetle species, and then also life histories of fungi as well. Like, okay, this particular species of fungus is associated with dieback, or has been associated with dieback, versus this one that is just a decomposer, for example. So if we are able to isolate those fungal species and kind of figure out what they are, we can kind of say, okay, based on where it is, this is what we know is going on, and kind of piece it all together.
I gotcha. Okay. So one last question, Mamilla. I love to say your name. It just kind of rolls off my tongue, and it probably rolls off incorrectly. But after your master's, where do you see your career? Where are you going next? What do you think?
I plan on proceeding for my PhD, and I plan on working with my supervisor, Dr. Ashley Schultz, on forest health. I like to be a forest health expert, and I would like to explore the forestry industry in the United States.
Okay. Well, that's exciting. Very exciting. And I want to just thank you both for being here and being on our show. And it was exciting to learn a little bit about forest insects and the impact that they might have on forests in our neighborhood and right down the road. And so we appreciate you being out there and being vigilant to find the insects, find the pathogens, and find ways to make our forest healthier.
It's a lot of fun. Thank you for having us.
Yes, yes. And thank you for stopping by to see the show. I hope you'll get outside and enjoy our natural resources, but stay hydrated and cool because it is hot. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you next time.